Imagine you're sleeping in your village one night. Everything is normal. Children are laughing. Merchants are counting coins. People are planning tomorrow. Then suddenly, the ground starts shaking. At first, you think it's thunder. But there are no clouds. The shaking becomes louder. Then you hear it. Thousands of horses. Thousands. An army moving faster than anyone thought possible. Before sunrise, your city is surrounded. Before sunset, your world no longer exists. And leading this unstoppable force was a man once abandoned by his own tribe. A boy whose family had no food. A boy who watched his father die. A boy who became one of the most feared names in human history. That boy was Genghis Khan. His empire eventually stretched across nearly 24 million square kilometers. The largest connected land empire ever created. But here's the shocking part. Genghis Khan did not begin life as a king. He began with almost nothing. So how did one man rise from poverty and betrayal to conquer much of the known world? And how did he build an empire so powerful that its impact can still be seen today? This is the story of how Genghis Khan built the largest land empire in history. Year, around 1162. Location, the harsh grasslands of Mongolia. Life on the Mongolian steppe was brutal. There were no safe cities. No modern governments. No easy survival. The endless grasslands stretched farther than the eye could see. Winters could freeze people to death. Food could disappear overnight. Only the strong survived. People lived as nomads. They moved constantly with their animals. Horses were life. Without horses, survival was almost impossible. Different tribes fought constantly. Raids, revenge, and battles were normal. Trust was rare. Violence was common. Into this world, a boy named Temujin was born. Nobody knew that this child would eventually become Genghis Khan. As a child, Temujin's future looked ordinary. His father was a tribal leader named Yasugei. For a short time, life seemed stable. But everything changed suddenly. Temujin's father was poisoned by enemies. Just like that, protection disappeared. And what happened next was even worse. Temujin's tribe abandoned his family. Imagine that. A child loses his father. Then his own people leave him behind. No army. No power. No wealth. Nothing. Temujin, his mother, and his siblings were left alone in one of the harshest environments on earth. They hunted small animals. They searched for roots. Sometimes they nearly starved. But difficult situations often create dangerous people. And Temujin was changing. Very slowly, the boy who had nothing was learning lessons that would later help him conquer nations. He learned survival. He learned patience. And most importantly, he learned that trusting the wrong people could destroy everything. That lesson would shape the rest of his life. But survival was only the beginning. Because soon, Temujin would face betrayal, capture, and a decision that would change history forever. Part 26 to 1400 hours. Recap transition. Temujin had lost his father. His family had been abandoned. They struggled to survive in one of the most unforgiving places on earth. Most people would have disappeared into history. But Temujin was not like most people. Because the next events in his life would turn him from a survivor into something much more dangerous. Life on the Mongolian steppe had one rule. Weakness invited attack. And Temujin's family looked weak. One day, enemies from a rival tribe decided to act. The tribe was called the Gid. They believed Temujin could become a threat someday. So they captured him. Imagine being a young boy. Your hands tied. Your neck locked inside a heavy wooden collar. You cannot run. You cannot fight. You are treated like property. For many people, that would be the end. History would forget them. But Temujin was already learning something important. No prison is perfect. No enemy is unbeatable. And no situation lasts forever. One night, while guards were distracted, Temujin made his move. He escaped. But escaping was only the beginning. He still had enemies searching for him. He ran through darkness. Across cold land. Through rivers and fields. Every sound could mean death. Then something unexpected happened. A stranger helped him. Think about how strange this was. On the Mongolian steppe, Trusting someone could get you killed. Yet a man risked his own life to hide Temujin and protect him. Temujin never forgot acts of loyalty. Never. Years later, when he became powerful, he remembered people who had helped him. And he also remembered those who betrayed him. Both lists became very important. As Temujin grew older, he became stronger. But he was still not a king. He had no massive army. No empire. No throne. What he did have was ambition. And slowly he began gathering followers. But here is what made Temujin different from many leaders of his time. Most tribes respected bloodlines. If your father was powerful, you became powerful. Temujin thought differently. He cared about loyalty and ability. If someone was brave and useful, they could rise. This was revolutionary. Because suddenly ordinary people had opportunities they never had before. Warriors started joining him. Not because he was rich. Not because he had a giant army. But because they believed following Temujin could change their lives. His small group began growing. 10 men became 20. 20 became 50. 50 became hundreds. But success creates new problems. And Temujin's biggest challenge was still waiting. Before his father's death, Temujin had been promised to a girl named Bort. As he grew older, he returned to marry her. At first everything seemed normal. But then disaster struck. A rival tribe attacked. And they kidnapped Bort. Imagine what this meant. Temujin had already lost his father. Lost protection. Lost security. And now he lost his wife. Many men would have accepted defeat. Temujin did the opposite. He decided to go after her. But there was one problem. He was not strong enough. Not yet. So he did something that would shape world history. He formed alliances. He asked powerful leaders for help. Among them was a childhood friend named Jamuka. Together they gathered warriors. Together they prepared for battle. And then they attacked. The rescue mission succeeded. Borte returned. But something much larger had happened. Temujin had learned a powerful lesson. A single man can survive. But alliances can change history. Yet the friend who helped Temujin save his wife would eventually become one of his greatest enemies. And their conflict would decide who controlled the Mongolian world. Temujin had survived starvation. He escaped captivity. He rescued Bort. He gained followers. But now the biggest battle of his life was beginning. Because the man who once stood beside him was now standing against him. That man was Jamuka. Once friends, now rivals. And both wanted the same thing. Control of the Mongolian tribes. At this time, Mongolia was divided. Different tribes fought endlessly. Every group had its own leader, its own alliances, its own enemies. For generations nobody had managed to unite them. Jamuka believed power belonged to noble bloodlines. Temujin believed power should belong to people who earned it. Two ideas. Two leaders. One future. War became unavoidable. Battles broke out across the steppe. Horsemen raced across massive grasslands. Arrows filled the air. Tribes were forced to choose sides. Some chose Jamuka. Others chose Temujin. But Temujin had an advantage. He rewarded loyalty. He promoted skilled warriors no matter where they came from. To many ordinary people, this changed everything. For the first time, a poor man could rise through talent. People began joining him in larger numbers. His army grew stronger. His influence spread. And eventually, Jamuka lost. History was changing. Because in the year 1206, tribal leaders gathered for an important meeting. The meeting was called a Kurultai. There, Temujin received a new name, Genghis Khan. The meaning is debated by historians. Some believe it meant universal ruler. Others believe it meant oceanic ruler. But one thing was clear. The boy abandoned by his tribe had become leader of united Mongolia. Most people would stop there. Most people would protect what they built. Most people would enjoy victory. Genghis Khan did the opposite. He looked beyond Mongolia. Far beyond. He looked at the world. At this time, powerful kingdoms surrounded Mongolia. Many leaders underestimated him. They saw horse riders living in tents. They thought these people were primitive. They thought they were weak. That was a terrible mistake. Because Genghis Khan had transformed his army. His soldiers could travel incredible distances. Each warrior often carried several horses. When one horse became tired, they switched to another. This allowed them to move faster than enemies expected. They trained constantly. They practiced archery from horseback. Imagine riding at full speed while firing arrows with deadly accuracy. Many enemies had never seen anything like it. And Genghis Khan used something even more powerful: psychology. Sometimes entire cities surrendered before battles even began. Stories spread rapidly. Stories of armies appearing suddenly. Stories of impossible victories. Stories of cities destroyed after resistance. Fear traveled ahead of his soldiers. And fear itself became a weapon. Soon Genghis Khan began attacking neighboring kingdoms. Campaign after campaign. Victory after victory. His empire expanded rapidly. Northern China. Central Asia. Huge territories began falling under his control. Cities that had existed for centuries suddenly faced a force they did not understand. And the world started realizing something frightening. This was not another tribal leader. This was not another raider. This was the beginning of a massive empire. But even unstoppable forces have limits. And soon Genghis Khan would face one final chapter. The question was no longer whether he could conquer land. The question was, how much of the world could he take before time ran out? The boy abandoned by his tribe had become Genghis Khan. The man once left to starve had united Mongolia. And now his armies were changing the map of the world. Kingdom after kingdom was falling. City after city was surrendering. To many people, it must have felt like nothing could stop him. But time defeats everyone, even conquerors. As the years passed, Genghis Khan continued expanding his empire. His armies moved westward and eastward, across deserts, across mountains, across lands many Mongolians had never even imagined. His commanders became some of the most feared military leaders in history. Wherever they went, people heard stories. Stories of speed. Stories of strategy. Stories of destruction. But behind the fear and warfare, something else was happening. Genghis Khan was building systems. Many people only remember him as a conqueror. But his empire changed much more than battlefields. Trade routes became safer. Communication improved. Messengers could travel enormous distances across the empire. Ideas, technology, and knowledge moved faster between different regions. Different cultures began interacting more than before. For merchants and travelers, this created opportunities that had never existed. The famous Silk Road became far more active under Mongol control. Goods moved across continents. Information moved across continents. The world became more connected. But despite all of his victories, Genghis Khan still wanted more. His final campaigns continued pushing into new territories. Then suddenly, something happened. In the year 1227, Genghis Khan died. And here comes one of history's biggest mysteries. Nobody knows exactly how he died. Some stories claim he fell from a horse. Others suggest illness. Some legends tell much stranger stories. But historians still debate the truth. Even more mysterious is his burial place. To this day, nobody has found his confirmed tomb. Think about that. One of the most powerful men in history. A ruler whose empire shook continents. And the location of his grave remains unknown. It's one of history's greatest mysteries. After his death, many people expected his empire to collapse. But that did not happen. His sons and grandsons continued expanding Mongol power. The empire became even larger. Eventually, it stretched across nearly 24 million square kilometers. The largest connected land empire in human history. From parts of Eastern Europe to China, across enormous sections of Asia, the Mongol Empire changed the world. But Genghis Khan's legacy remains complicated. For some people, he was a brilliant leader. A military genius. A unifier. For others, he represented destruction and fear. Entire cities suffered during Mongol invasions. Countless lives were lost. History remembers both sides. And maybe that is what makes his story so powerful. Heroes are simple. Villains are simple. Reality is usually more complicated. Think back to where this story started. A young boy abandoned on the harsh Mongolian steppe. No throne. No army. No empire. Nothing. If someone had looked at that child and predicted he would reshape human history, people would have laughed. Yet he did it. And maybe that is the strangest lesson of all. History is often changed by people nobody expects. People who begin with almost nothing. Because sometimes, the person standing at the edge of the world ends up conquering it. If you enjoyed this journey through history, subscribe and tell me in the comments. Which historical leader should we uncover next?